This really is super wide. Let me take a selfie and show you how wide this really is. So hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And today I have the NiSi 9mm f2.8 super wide angle lens with me. I've now been using this lens on several occasions and I'm ready to share my opinion. This is a super wide angle for APS-C cameras. This is available for Fuji X, Canon RF, Nikon Z and Sony E mounts. But this is also available for Micro Four Thirds, but of course on Micro Four Thirds the angle of view is significantly narrower because the smaller sensor. But first a disclaimer, this is a review sample from NiSi and I'd like to say big thanks to NiSi for sending out this lens to me for a review. My camera is the Sony a7 IV, which of course is a full frame camera, but I've been using it on APS-C mode with this lens. The file size or picture megapixel size is 14 megapixels, which by today's standards is not a lot, but it's good enough for many purposes. So my optical quality and sharpness assessments are based on that 14 megapixels. I think I already mentioned this is a fully manual lens. Manual focus, manual everything, no electronic connection between the camera and the lens whatsoever. And that is fine, except that you will not get any kind of EXIF data from the lens. So you'll have to somehow enter that in the keywords or use some other method if you want to know which lens you used when you are looking at your photos in post in your favorite whatever application it is. The build quality of this lens is absolutely beautiful and I'd say this is slightly above the usual Chinese lens build quality, even though most of them are really nicely built. But this reminds me of Voigtlander or Zeiss lenses, so it feels really good. All the materials, everything is metal of course, and the aperturing is super smooth, stepless. I wish it had steps or clicks for photography. But as it is really nice, and also the focus ring is super smooth. It makes me want to just turn it back and forth because it feels so smooth and nice. And the metal lens hood is included and the filter size is 67 millimeters, and this is also compatible with NiSi 100 millimeter filter system or whatever it is called. I already said this is a super wide angle, but this really is super wide. Let me take a selfie and show you how wide this really is. So the lens is like this close to me and now I'm hitting the shutter a couple of times, one more to be safe. So it's less than 1 meter away from my face, maybe, I don't know, 60 centimeters or so. And as you can see from this photo, it is really wide. What about the optical quality then? First of all, this lens is very sharp based on my 14 megapixel assessment. Also the contrast holds really nicely even in backlit situations. So in that regard, there's nothing to complain about. NiSi claims minimal distortions, and that is true. There's only minor barrel type of distortion visible, and bear in mind that this lens has no electronic corrections whatsoever, so everything is optically corrected as it is. The manufacturer also talks about sun stars, and indeed they are really good looking pretty much at every aperture. There is some vignetting visible, especially in the extreme corners. But considering this lens is not software corrected, I think it's pretty okay, because wide angles, super wide angles always have more or less vignetting. It is impossible to make a super wide angle without any vignetting. Manual focusing is not any kind of a problem on a super wide angle lens because of the almost endless depth of field. You only have to worry about precise focusing if you're shooting very close up near minimum focusing distance and wide open. Most of the time I set the distance by looking at the scale on the lens and I shoot at f5.6 or f8 and I'm good to go. I don't have to really focus by looking through the viewfinder or the screen. So who is this lens for, or what is this good for? I think this is good for anything or everything. I don't like to categorize lenses too much. You use the lens you want and shoot whatever you want on that lens. You can use this lens for astrophotography as the manufacturer suggests, and I shot some street photos on this lens and it works quite well for that too. But this is so wide that you have to be pretty close to your subjects. But still it works well for that too. And this could also work for portraits, but you can't go too close to your subject because it will distort the face. Let me take another selfie and show you what happens if you shoot a selfie too close, like something like, maybe that is that 20 centimeters, maybe it is. So there you have it. If you go too close, it will distort the face. But environmental portraits are also good. And you can use this, of course, for interiors, city architecture, everything, anything, whatever you want. A super wide angle can be good fun, but it can also wear out quickly if you use it all the time. So my recommendation is to use any lens like this with a little bit of consideration and do not overuse it. It looks like it's going to rain here in the tropics, and I almost forgot to say that this lens is partially weather sealed. There is a seal around the mount, but no other weather sealing. But I don't think it's a big problem because this lens is fully manual, like I've said already many times. There are no electronics, so I don't think small rain or humid environment is bad for this lens. I think this is a really great option for any APS-C camera, mirrorless APS-C camera. It's sharp and well made, and I can't find much to complain about this lens. The only thing is that it's a manual or fully manual lens, but if you're looking for a manual lens, then that is not a downside at all. But I would not necessarily recommend this for micro four thirds. Firstly, because the angle of view is quite a bit narrower on micro four thirds, and this is not, even though this is quite a small lens, but for micro four thirds lens, this is not that tiny. And I think if you're looking for something like 9mm wide angle for your micro four thirds camera, there are better options than this, like for example the Laowa 10mm f2, which is tiny, sharp, and well made and all that. There is nothing wrong with this lens for micro four thirds, but I just think there are better options. But for any APS-C mirrorless camera, I think this is a fantastic manual focus option. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and if you found this useful, please consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.